Okay, so everyone here today has either been in school, is in school right now, or will do schooling in the future. And so we've all been part of something called the education system. So this education system, well, what is it? Well, it's something, if you go to school, if you go to college, and we're in class, at that time we're part of the education system. Now we all want to do something unique in our life, we have unique aspirations, but since we all go through the same education system, if we're in the same, so we are in the same education system, but we have different unique aspirations. And so, since we're in the same system, we end up being similar jobs as our colleagues in the future. Well, why is that? It's because the education system is really structured, it's really robotic, and that's why we all usually end up in the same field or in the same type of job. Now, my name is Aanand, Bajaj, and I'm going to talk to you today about the power of being a contrarian. Now, if we go back in the past, we see the greats of the time, Warren Buffett, Isaac Newton, and Apple's Steve Jobs. Well, what do they all have in common? They were contrarians of their time. And you're probably wondering, well, what is a contrarian? So, a contrarian, in simple definition, is someone who acts and thinks on a level above the general population. And so that's really what defines these three people and many others in the past. Now, we all have mobile phones. Let's talk about mobile phones. So if Steve Jobs went to someone in the 1960s and said, I'm going to take a computer, compress it into your pocket, and take out all the buttons, well, I think that person would think Steve Jobs was nuts. And if he did that, I mean, the guy would probably faint as well, because that's something that no one would have even thought of at that time, is to create a mobile phone, take out all the buttons, just make a touch screen. And so that is what being contrarian really means. Now, show of hands. In 30 years, who thinks that our education system will be just like it is today? You're going to a classroom, it's a professor in the front, you're sitting in a seat. In 30 years, who thinks it's going to be the same? Some people. I actually think it'll be the same, and that is because if you look back 100 years ago, it was the exact same. And so it hasn't really changed at all. And the reason is because there hasn't been a lot of contrarian thinking, or people thinking really differently in the education system. Now that's changing, but education institutions don't really like that. I talked about the definition. Now let me talk about myself and my experiences and how I thought differently. So let's go back in time again in high school, and that's where the story actually starts. So while everyone around me was, applying to be executive, president of other clubs, I realized, these people are really passionate about what they do. But then I started asking around, and like most people like me as well, it was for a resume or for a university application. And so they didn't really do it. They just, for themselves, they did it for other people. And that's not really what a contrarian does. They don't do it for other people, they do it for themselves, and they think differently. So what I did is, well, instead of doing it for other people, why not do something in the community to help people around the world? And so I started an organization called Little Library, which so far has raised over 15,000 books, and we've been doing a really great job. I've had a lot of volunteers help me out in the community in Brampton, where I'm from, and so I've partnered with the libraries. I've been featured on newspapers, in the radio, in TV, well, you name it. And so why? It's because I thought differently, and it's just one way of thinking in a different way. That's why I got success in where I wanted to do. Now, let's talk about a really relevant topic. I'm sure I'll get a lot of reactions for this. Is in the US, there's been a presidential election, and obviously everyone knows that Donald Trump won the election. Well, why is that? It's because he asked himself one question, and that is, why can't a businessman ever become president? And so by asking himself one question, he got to where he wanted to be, and that is the president. So you can really realize the power of becoming a contrarian. And so not a lot of people think like that, and that's why he got to where he wanted to be. So now I've talked about how to become a contrarian and everything, but what's the steps? A lot of people like to have the steps laid out in front of them, and so that's what I'm going to do for you today. So I've talked to many people, really successful people, looked in the past, and I've come up with 4 main things that allow you to be a contrarian. Number one is you have to tell yourself that you're average. I'll give you an example. Sir Isaac Newton, in the past, he had a rough childhood, believe me. And at this lowest point in his life, he told himself that, you know what, I'm just trying to do everything that everyone else is trying to do as well. And that he told himself in a way that he's average. And once he said that, he tried to become above average. And that's why he got to where he wanted to be and one of the great people in science. Number two is find something you're really good at and do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So, who here has done a job interview recently? A lot of people. So, everyone in a job interview does what everyone else does, prep for the questions, but no one really looks to understand the interviewers. And not a lot of people ask really good questions at the end. So just by doing two different things and thinking, well, it's more of a conversation than an interrogation, you can get to where you want to be, get the job, and that's what contrarian thinking is. Number three is you have to be skeptical. I mean, if Elon Musk told you 20 years ago that he wanted to reuse rockets, you'd say, wow, that's impossible. But just by asking the question, he did it. That's why SpaceX is there today. And number four is, this is my favorite, is you have to compound your contrarianism. Now in finance, we all know something about compounding interest, but that applies to knowledge as well. And if we ask ourselves questions every day, if we think differently every day, that ability really compounds. And so these are the four main steps of becoming a contrarian. Now, at the end of the day, we're all trying to get a really good job, a good career in the future, do something we really enjoy. But if we're all going on the same path, and that's what the education system does, you're on the same path as everyone else, you won't get to where you really want to be. And that's why I'm going to challenge everyone here today. Because only 13% of people in the career love the job that they do, and they like going to work. And that's a really low number in today's day. We need people to be motivated. And so, since we're all kids, we have that opportunity. So, I want to give all of you a challenge. And that is, that I want you to go home today, take a piece of paper and write down where you want to be in 5 years, and then right under it, write down where you will probably be in 5 years. And if you're really true to yourself, there'll be a big difference between where you want to and where you'll probably be. Now, it's going to be really tough, but you have to think like a contrarian. As I said, you have to think in a different way to get to where you want to be. And you can't just follow what everyone else is doing in school and education. Otherwise, you look back, you'll be 40 or whatever, and you'll say, man, I feel like a robot. I feel like I'm doing the exact same thing as everyone else. And so, just by applying a contrarian thinking, you can really get to where you want to be. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Woo!